Imagine an angel so radiant, so wise, that even the stars seemed to dim when he passed by. An angel whose very name means light of God. But what happens when that angel is sent into total darkness? Not by rebellion, not by force, but by choice, by command, by love. Uriel, known as the flame of God, was not one of the rebellious watchers. He was no fallen angel. And yet he was commanded to descend into what? The abyss. The place where even the other angels turn their faces away. The place where demons are chained. Where the cries of the Nephilim echo through the blackness. Why would God send a holy angel into the very place created to contain evil? And what was the mission that was so forbidden? Even heaven itself dared not speak of it. That's the mystery we're diving into today. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered if angels carry burdens we can't even imagine? That their obedience isn't just glory and praise, but sometimes agony and silence? Because Uriel's mission was not to fight, not to save, but to witness. Before we begin, if this story is already pulling on your curiosity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss another mystery from Bible Mysteries. Let's start at the beginning. Before the earth was filled with chaos, before the Watchers descended and taught forbidden knowledge, before the Nephilim walked among men, there was Uriel. Among the 7 archangels, he wasn't the most famous. He didn't wield a sword like Michael. He didn't carry messages like Gabriel. But Uriel, he held the flame of divine understanding. He was the keeper of mysteries, the one entrusted with heaven's most delicate secrets. Uriel was called upon when men were confused, when nations were lost in darkness, when wisdom, not war, was needed. And because of that, he often stayed silent, watching, listening, waiting for the command that would tear through the silence. But nothing could have prepared him for the moment that changed everything. The moment the Creator spoke his name, Uriel, son of flame, descend. Heaven grew silent. The other angels froze because Uriel was being sent, not to earth, not to a prophet, not to a king, but to the abyss, the prison of fallen angels. The place where the disobedient watchers screamed through eternity, cut off from God. This was no place for an archangel of light. It was a place of judgment, a place of finality. So why was he going? As he descended, the light of heaven behind him faded, not because it was gone, but because the place he was entering could not reflect light. The deeper he went, the thicker the darkness became, not just around him, but inside. Because even an angel is not immune to the weight of despair. He passed through the cries of the Nephilim, offspring of angels and humans now suffering. He passed through the flaming prisons of the Watchers, angels who had once been like him, now twisted by lust and pride. And there, at the edge of the void, he found them. Do you want to know what Uriel saw in the abyss? The truth is more terrifying and more beautiful than you can imagine. Uriel stood on the edge of the abyss, his light flickering not from weakness, but from resistance. The abyss wasn't just a place, it was a force, a crushing living void where all hope had been banished. And yet, in obedience, Uriel stepped forward. And what was this place really? According to ancient texts, some hidden, some silenced, the abyss or Tartarus wasn't just hell. It was a specific prison reserved for the worst offenders of heaven's law. Not for humans, not for demons, but for angels. Specifically, the 200 watchers who descended in the days of Enoch. These were once divine beings, beautiful and glorious. But they abandoned their post. They took human wives. They taught forbidden arts, sorcery, enchantments, the art of war, the making of weapons. They corrupted humanity. They created the Nephilim, giants, monsters, souls not meant to exist. So the watchers were chained in fire, in silence, in Tartarus. As Uriel entered, the darkness began to whisper. Why have you come, light of God? Did heaven finally forget us? Will you judge us or join us? He said nothing, and yet his silence was thunder. Uriel's mission was not to destroy, it was not to rescue. He had been sent to bear witness, to see what heaven had bound, to see what humanity would one day remember only in shadowed stories. But here's where the mystery deepens. As Uriel walked among the chained watchers, he didn't see monsters. He saw tears, angels weeping eyes that once held light now dimmed by centuries of regret. Some shouted in rage, some cursed God, but others wept for what they had done. And the flame of God, Uriel, saw what no one else had dared to see. Can something once holy ever feel remorse? Is it possible that even a fallen being can ache for redemption it will never receive? And if so, what does that say about God's justice and God's mercy? One of the watchers cried out, Uriel, you who know the secrets of the stars, why are you here? To mock us, to remind us of what we've lost. Uriel's voice finally spoke, and it was like fire breaking the silence. No, I am here because the Father still sees you, not to free you, not to condemn you, but to testify. That shook the abyss. Because you see, Uriel wasn't just a messenger, he was an eternal witness, and witnesses carry the memory of truth into eternity. But why did God send him? This is the question Uriel asked in silence. Why be sent to watch the damned? Then he heard it, a voice not from below, but from within. You were sent to understand what judgment costs, so that when you speak to the prophets, you will not speak with pride, but with pain. Let that sink in for a moment. Uriel, the flame of God, had to walk through hell, not to become like them, but to understand what it means for God to judge those he once loved. That's heavy. Even angels carry burdens. So, what do you think? Can justice exist without sorrow? Can a holy God look upon those he punishes and still grieve? Uriel's presence in the abyss tells us yes, but that wasn't the end. Because Uriel's mission wasn't just to see the watchers, he was also sent to speak to something far older, far darker, something even the watchers feared. The first prisoner. At the edge of this shadowed prison, Uriel walked past the chained watchers, past the ashes of the Nephilim spirits who still howled between realms, and deeper still, into a silence that wasn't just quiet, it was empty. A silence that made even Uriel's flame flicker uncertainly. Something ancient waited here. Something not of earth, and not entirely of heaven either. Let me ask you this. What do you imagine is locked in the deepest cell of creation? Is it Lucifer? No. He still roams. Is it death itself? No. Death is allowed to move freely for now. Then what? Uriel stepped forward into the deepest crevice of Tartarus, where the first prisoner was kept. The darkness shifted, and Uriel saw it. Not a man, not a beast, but something that pulsed like a wound in the universe. It didn't have a name that could be spoken. Not anymore. But some ancient texts hint at what this might be. Chaos. Before the creation of the heavens and the earth, before the Spirit of God hovered over the waters, there was chaos. It wasn't evil. It wasn't good. It was raw, unformed, infinite potential and infinite destruction. When God created the universe, he pushed back the chaos. He contained it. He placed boundaries on it, but he didn't destroy it. And in the deepest part of the abyss, that formless terror still churns. Uriel stood before it, and it recognized him. You are the flame. You are order. You should not be here. The voice wasn't a sound. It was a presence. It pressed into Uriel's mind, trying to unravel him, to undo him, to pull him into the formless void. But Uriel stood still, not with pride, but with purpose. He had been sent by the Creator to confront what had been buried since the beginning, not to fight it, but to remind it that the light still watched. And then the chaos asked him something strange. Why do you shine when all light dies here? Uriel answered simply, because I do not shine from myself. I shine from him who formed you. That statement tore through the darkness like a blade, and for a moment, chaos paused. Even the formless void was reminded it had boundaries. It had a beginning, and it will one day have an end. Here's something to reflect on. What is your chaos? We all carry it. Those thoughts we can't control, those fears we hide, those places we dare not speak of, even to God. Uriel's descent reminds us even chaos has to bow. Even the formless, shapeless darkness in your soul must obey the voice of the Creator. And maybe, just maybe, your greatest battle isn't to defeat the darkness, but to stand in it and not be undone. Uriel did not speak again. He simply stood, not as a warrior, not as a judge, but as a witness of God's boundary, a living reminder that light is watching even here. And then the voice of the Creator whispered once more, "You have seen enough, flame of God. Return and carry the sorrow of the pit, so the world may one day know what love costs." So Uriel turned back, but he did not ascend as he came. Something in him had changed. He had seen what no angel was meant to see, and when he returned to heaven, the other angels looked upon him in silence, because his light now bore a shadow not of sin but of understanding. When Uriel, the flame of God, was summoned by the Most High, heaven held its breath. He was not being sent to deliver a message, not to protect a prophet, not even to cast judgment. He was being sent down into the abyss, not because he had sinned, but because he hadn't. He was chosen because of his purity, his wisdom, his capacity to carry what no one else could bear. The command was simple: descend. No explanation, no companions, just obedience. And Uriel, though confused, obeyed. As he descended past the edge of heaven's light, even the stars began to fade behind him. He was entering Tartarus, the place of judgment, of fire, of regret, where the watchers, once glorious angels, were now chained in eternal punishment, twisted by their betrayal, cursed for their lust, and tormented by the memory of what they had lost. Uriel passed through their cries and did not look away. He did not pity them, but he mourned what could have been. Then he reached the bottom where no angel had walked freely, where no light had lingered for eons, and there he met something older than the rebellion, more ancient than the fall. Chaos, not Lucifer, not a demon, not death, but the unformed void from before Genesis 1 to 2, the one that hovered beneath the surface of God's ordered creation, a wound in the fabric of existence. It spoke to Uriel. It tried to unravel him, to erase him, and still he stood, because Uriel didn't shine from himself. He carried the flame of the one who made light from nothing. And what did that accomplish? You might wonder, what's the point of witnessing something you can't change? But here's the divine truth. Sometimes the greatest power is presence, being where others refuse to go, carrying light into places it's never been, even if that light isn't there to fix, but to remember. Because what Uriel brought back was understanding. He now saw the cost of justice, the sorrow of separation, the agony of rebellion, not just the punishment, but the pain in God's heart to enforce it. When Uriel returned to heaven, something was different. The other angels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, they saw it. His flame still burned, but it had changed. It wasn't just holy fire now, it was tempered fire, not weakened, deepened. He didn't speak much of what he saw, but he didn't have to. Because when the time came for the prophet Enoch to receive visions of the heavens and the ends of the earth, who was sent to guide him? Uriel. He was the one who revealed the book of the luminaries, who showed the coming flood, who carried the mysteries of time, the stars, and the final judgment. Why? Because only someone who had walked through the darkness could speak with full truth about the light. Now, let me ask you one final question. What is God asking you to endure? What darkness are you being called to walk through? Not to fix it, not to fight it, but just to witness. Because Uriel teaches us something deeply personal, that even in God's kingdom, sometimes the mission isn't about victory. Sometimes it's about faithfulness in the shadows, about showing up, holding your light, and trusting that your presence alone changes everything. Uriel's mission was forbidden. Yes, not because it was evil, but because it was sacred, too deep, too mysterious, too painful for most to understand. But now you know. Until next time, stay curious, stay faithful, and never stop seeking the mysteries of